a laboratory explosion at University of Hawaii, result in loss of arm and cost about $716,000 in infrastructure damage and $16,000 to $100,000 in equipment loss. On March 16, 2016, Tia Ikin Cotwood, a 29 years old postdoctoral researcher at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, lost her arm in this laboratory. Cause of the accident. According to a report by the University of California Center for Laboratory Safety, UCCLS, an electrostatic discharge between the postdoctoral researcher, Tia Ikin Cotwood, and a gas storage tank containing hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide likely caused an explosion. This is because Dr. Ikin Cotwood's experiment used a mixture of hydrogen, carbon dioxide, and oxygen gases as feedstock for a bacteria culture inside of a low-pressure tank. The investigation report from the Honolulu Fire Department concluded that an electronic gauge, which is used to measure the pressure inside the gas-mixing vessel, it created a spark when Dr. Ikin Cotwood pressed the off button. The spark ignited the gas inside the tank and triggering the explosion. The electronic gauge was not designed to be used in system containing a flammable mixture of gas. And this is the picture about $800,000 in lab damage. Tia Ikin Cotwood is victim that involved in this accident. She is a 29 years old UK citizen, and she also is a postdoctoral at University of Hawaii, Manoa. In this explosion, Tia Ikin Cotwood lost her right arm above her elbow. She suffered facial burn, abrasion to her cornea, and nerve damage to her ear that lead to high-frequency hearing loss. She was working on research to produce liquid fuel from synthetic gas such as hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. Suddenly, the explosion happened. The steel tank ruptured during the explosion and severed Tia Ikin Cotwood's arm.
How much does this explosion cost? So for the equipment losses, the cost is $16,000 to $100,000, which is in RM is 280,337 ringgit and 42 cents to 467,246 ringgit and 58 cents. For the infrastructure damage, the cost is $716, which is in RM is 3,345,176 ringgit and 48 cents. Besides that, University of California Center for Laboratory Safety (UCCLS) was paid $88,000, which is in RM is 411,174 ringgit and 50 cents. For the statistic from Nirupama Gopalasmawi and Zihan in March 2020, chemical spills were observed to be the most recurrent hazard type, contributing to 45% of incidents, following by explosion 23% and fire 21%, fire and explosion 5%, spill and explosion 3%, spill and fire 1%, and no hazard 2%. Fact of explosion in University of Hawaii, January. The lab passed a safety inspection in January in part by properly storing H2 and O2 cylinders 6 meters apart, but no one questioned storing a mixture of the gas in a 49L steel tank designed for compressed air and not electrically grounded. When the tank exploded, it contained 55% H2, 38% O2, and 7% CO2 at a pressure of 8 atm. University of California Center for Laboratory Safety (UCCLS) estimate the energy of the detonation to be equivalent to 70.5 grams of TNT.
How to prevent this accident from happening? Related to the accident, safety inspection need to be done thoroughly. Researchers need to educate themselves about the hazards of the materials they are working with. Campus safety personnel need to have conversation with researchers and guide them to the resources that are available to help conduct experiments safely. Safety recommendation for working with explosive gas mixture. Calculate the potential explosive force to determine level of protection needed. Compose detailed and thorough standard operating procedure. Conduct specialized training on highly explosive materials. Use well-designed, hazard-rate equipment, intrinsically safe as a minimum rating. Electrically ground and burn equipment. Use blast barriers. Use engineering control for highly explosive materials. Use work practice controls to limit access. And conduct outside review of procedure, equipment, and engineering control. A commitment to research safety means more than just wearing your personal protective equipment (PPE) and completing your safety training courses. Your safety relies on lab workers and faculty working together to recognize hazards and design safer experiments. Following this procedure when planning your experiment will help assure the safety of yourself and your lab mates. First, hazard assessments. Second, approval. Third, reporting. First, hazard assessment. Perform a hazard assessment whenever you design or reproduce an experiment involving high hazard materials or equipment. Write a hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control hierarchy to document the safety controls that you will use in your design to reduce the likelihood or severity of an adverse event. Take into consideration how changes in the procedure, such as scale or equipment, will affect the safety of the experiment. Second, approval. Before conducting hazardous work, ask yourself, does my PI know I'm doing this? The use of hazardous materials and equipment require the approval of the PI, Principal Investigator. Make sure your PI has reviewed all lab-grade equipment involving hazardous energy, such as electricity and high pressure, and hazardous chemicals. The design must be reviewed before you start construction, and the complete apparatus must be reviewed before initial use. Inform Department of Occupational Safety and Health (DOSH) of any installation of hazardous or flammable gases prior to use so the equipment can be inspected. They include acutely toxic, corrosive, flammable, dangerously reactive, and oxidation gases. Inert compressed gases such as nitrogen, argon, and carbon dioxide are not considered hazardous gases for the purpose of this SOP. Third, reporting. Report all adverse incidents, even seemingly minor ones, to DOSH and your PI before repeating the experiment. Notify your PI or DOSH if you believe that someone in your lab is working unsafely or may not be following the above procedure. Ways to prevent accident. First, make sure that all eye wash station, emergency shower, fire extinguisher, and exits are always unobstructed and accessible. Second, chemical should never be mixed in the sink drains. Third, report to your superior about every accident that occurs. Fourth, make sure to wear personal protection equipment when conducting an experiment. Fifth, consult with expert if you hesitate about your experiment.